It's Tuesday, and Tuesday on BookTube is synonymous with tags. I've been tagged for the Roadmap of Your Life tag by Hannah at Hannah's Books. This is not a roadmap. This is a map of the Grande Randonnée of France. Great long walking trails in France. I don't drive now. I haven't driven since I've lived in Georgia, which is almost 15 years. I walk a lot, and I take the metro as well around the city. As Jim, this is my channel, books, reading, and stuff. This tag just has 2 prompts. It was created by Tristan at Tristan L Space Books, and the first prompt is, what is a book that reminds you of or takes place in each place that you've lived? I've lived in a lot of places, so it could be a long tag. When I was first on BookTube, I did a video called Home, a response to Margaret Pinard's video Home, where I went through all the places I lived. I can link to that here. I was born many moons ago in London. And London is synonymous with Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens was born in Portsmouth, another place, not that I lived, but I visited many times because my great uncle and aunt lived in Portsmouth. But London is our mutual friend. This is the River Thames. This is the reflection of St Paul's Cathedral in silhouette on the River Thames. And it starts with them fishing out a body from the River Thames. There's a lot in Dickens' novels about London, in Bleak House, in Oliver Twist, in many of his novels. They're set in and around London. I didn't live in London long before we moved out, and I went to school in Slough. Slough is very close to Eton, where former Prime Ministers David Cameron and Boris Johnson went to school, but the Eton boys were not allowed to visit Slough. There's a song by the Jam, Eton Rifles, about Eton and Slough. I'll put a link again in the description, along with a link to all the channels I mentioned. Slough is not really a book, it's a poem. There's a poem by John Betjeman, who was a big snob. Come friendly bombs and fall on Slough. It isn't fit for humans now. There isn't grass to graze a cow, swarm over death. I saw a recent YouTube video as well, which puts Slough as the most depressing town in the whole of the UK. That's where I did my schooling, that's where I grew up. After Slough, I went to Wales, to Aberystwyth, to the university to study geography and librarianship. I did librarianship because I wanted a vocation with geography. I didn't think I could do much with geography apart from teach, and so I wanted a vocation. And I had a Saturday job before in Slough in the library, shelving books and stamping books out. The irony is that I didn't end up as a librarian. I did end up as a teacher, but not teaching geography, teaching English to speakers of other languages. I don't have a book set in Aberystwyth, but there was One Moonlit Night by Caradog Prithard, recommended by Kieran at KD Books, which I read, which is set in the north of Wales, in the slate mines at the beginning of the 20th century, and the poverty of those communities there. And it's a very good read. And in the mid-80s, I went to Australia. I saw Deb's video of this tag, and she went to Woomera in Australia. I went around Australia. I visited every state apart from Western Australia. And a book that resonates with this time would be Songlines by Bruce Chatwin, which was published in 1987, which was the time I went to Australia, and he was looking at ideas for travelling and talking and exploring Australia and the dream time in Australia. He went to Central Australia, I went to Central Australia, I went to Alice Springs. I would have gone to Uluru, but I was in Alice Springs when they had their worst rains in 30 years, and the road to Uluru was impassable. The Todd River going through Alice was in full spate, usually it's dry, and it was an amazing experience. After Australia, I worked in London for a while. I worked in a record shop, and something that resonates with this is Nick Hornby's High Fidelity, about a guy working in a record shop. I don't know if it was in London or not, but Nick Hornby's first book, Fever Pitch, was about his love of Arsenal Football Club, which is certainly in London. And then from London, I moved out to France, well, via Oxford. I moved out to France, to Lizy-sur-Roc, and I worked in Paris. With Paris, I don't really associate it with books. I did read Balzac and Stendhal, and I loved Stendhal, hated Balzac, but I associate Paris more with painting. Some beautiful paintings in Paris. If you like Western painting, I'd recommend Paris for the Musée d'Orsay with the Impressionists, with the Louvre for the paintings before 1800, also l'Orangerie for the paintings of Monet. I particularly like Renoir, I like Degas, Toulouse-Lautrec. Paris is a beautiful city for paintings. These are some Renoirs. After 6 years in the Parisian area, I spent 6 months in Corsica. If I could live anywhere in the world and money was no object, I'd live in Corsica. But the problem is finding work in Corsica. It's not easy. Corsica is a beautiful island in the Mediterranean. It's like a mountain in the Mediterranean, and it smells of wild sage, and it's incredible. After Corsica, I went back to UK, first to Wales, and then to England, where I lived in Worcester for 10 years. Worcester is very close to Stratford-upon-Avon. Stratford-upon-Avon, of course, is famous for the bard, William Shakespeare, and Stratford is about half an hour from Worcester, and I often visited Stratford. I saw Romeo and Juliet, not Othello, at the Swan Theatre in Stratford, and I visited the Shakespeare museums there. And now, for the past 14 and a half years, I've been living here in Tbilisi, Georgia. These are the flags of Georgia. Georgia is situated between Turkey, Russia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. It's Western Asia or Eastern Europe, depending on your point of view. It's really, I suggest it's geographically Asia, but it identifies as Europe. Last month I did the Georgian Readathon. This shelf is all for books about Georgia or in Georgian. I have a lot of guidebooks of Tbilisi, but one book, or a series of books set in Tbilisi that I could recommend are these crime books by Ramaz Donadze, about Ramaz Donadze by A J Liddle. A J Liddle is a Scottish writer, but Ramaz Donadze is a detective in the style of the Scandinavian noir detectives who works in Tbilisi. There's so far 3 books in the series, and A J Liddle is writing a 4th. The first was No Harm Done, then No Way Back, and the latest one, No Rules Apply. The second prompt: since a roadmap not only shows you where you've been, but where you're going, what is a book that reminds you of or takes place in your next destination, or a place you'd like to live in? I'd like to live in Corsica. The book that reminds me of Corsica is Prospero Merimee's Colomba, written in the 19th century, about the vendettas they had in Corsica. That's not why I want to go there. I don't want to start any vendettas. There's plenty of vendettas in the history of Georgia as well, particularly in the mountain regions. I don't know where I'll go next, if I'll go anywhere. It might just be into the cemetery, so maybe something like Pet Cemetery. And in my reading, I'm travelling in my mind, depending on where the book is set. I'm currently reading about a Norwegian family. This one, 8 kids and a truck. It's about a family in Norway, in Georgian. I'm also reading about Chicago and Sarah Paretsky's bodywork. And I like reading because I can travel in my mind even if I'm not physically travelling. This summer we'll go away somewhere in Georgia, but we're not sure where yet, because Tbilisi, it's too hot. Just left for me to tag some people, and I don't know who's done this, who's been tagged, who hasn't. I will tag the following: Hannah at Savage Reads, Sandy Lender, Sandy says read, Benjamin at Benjamin's Book Club, Linda Joe at Elder Talk, and MJ at Reading This Live. And if you like the idea of this tag, please feel free to do this. Consider yourself tagged. If you enjoyed this video, you can give it a thumbs up. That will help me with the YouTube algorithm. And I'll see you on the next video. Goodbye. Tonight there's a big football match for Georgia. Georgia are playing Turkey in the Euro 2024 finals. It's the first time Georgia have qualified for these finals, so everybody's excited. We'll see how it goes. Last night, Romania beat Ukraine over here, 3-0.